Welcome to another episode of Chat Sports Talk. You don't know my name's Chat. Take a dive on sports. And welcome to my Week 5 NFL recap video. We'll go over this past week NFL action and kind of dive into the nonsense that followed. Multi-million-dollar quarterbacks not living up to what they're getting paid for. Coaches making some really interesting decisions. Refs not interpreting the rules correctly or not calling plays. I mean, this week has just been a fun field of debauchery all around. 2-point plays that shouldn't be going through, decisions that shouldn't be made. It was just a total mess. Unless you're Tom Brady, you get the calls. But hey, before we dive into all the rest of this nonsense, if you could, go ahead and smash that thumbs up for me, especially like content provider. Really appreciate you two guys. It really helps put the channel out. You can also subscribe. A lot of you guys review my work. I love you all for doing that. Now, maybe you subscribe. Does it cost you a dime? Helps me if I mark take me out for you. Now, before I dig into that last statement, I kind of threw it in there before that. It's a little self-plug. Let's go ahead and go back to last Thursday with the barn burner up there in Denver between the Colts and the Broncos, where you have two quarterbacks getting paid all this money and they could not do anything. Offensively, they had flashes that they would do, but Matt Ryan doesn't have the time to throw the ball. There's so many issues on that offensive line for him to do anything. Not having to run a game is really hampering his aspects. But he just, kept chugging along with his team. I mean, they beat Kansas City, so they got to have something right. But they just kept chugging along, making the plays they had to. Russ kept doing what he had to do. He makes some great plays here and there. And then other ones, you're just scratching your head going, WTF. Because he did throw 2 picks. And, yeah, his decision-making was off. He wasn't looking at the right receivers half the time. Or they were just running the wrong routes, and he had 2 receivers in the same area. Matt Ryan had to have the time to throw it, and he had issues with, it was just a horrible display of offensive of fertility. Fruitility, ineptness, depravity, thing of your bad adjective to put in there, and that was pretty much it. It was one big pile of dino poo. And it was just a kicker's dream. That's all it was. It was just field goal kickers. They're just doing their things. It went to overtime, 9-9. That's how bad it was. Then Indy hit the field goal to get the 3-point lead. Denver's ball. 4th and goal. Instead of kicking the 3 points and then allowing the defense to stop the Colts, they went for it. Hackett put his sack on the table and it got smashed. I don't know what type of play he was throwing, because when Russ stepped back to throw the ball, he was looking left and he should have looked right. He had a wide open receiver from the get-go and he missed him. By the time he saw him, he threw it at the exact same time another receiver came running across in front of him, trying to make the play. Didn't work. That was it. Colts left Denver 12-9 victors. And come to find out, Russ had some issues with his throwing arm that he had to go get a little treatment for. So there's something wrong right there in Denver. You play a quarterback, $250 million, and this is what you get. Maybe Seattle was right not re-signing him and just kind of hanging out to Geno and kind of waiting it out and see what happens in this year's, see where they fall in the draft and depending which quarterback they can grab. But I think Seattle got the better of the deal in this one. And of course, starting our week off with a loss. Then we head out to London, and Oh boy, oh boy. I mean, you wake up to a football and you get the Packers and the Giants. The Giants being the surprise team right now. It's like the first time a game playing in London had both teams had winning records. I mean, all the times they played in London, they've always had one team's been bad. And most times because they get that bad team that little extra money going playing in London. To get a little extra money to help them out. But you get this. I mean, Green Bay was doing everything they could in that first half. I mean, they're up 20-10. It wasn't a substantial lead. They were pacing themselves ahead, but they couldn't score after that. After that first half, they were done scoring. The only time they ever got points is when the Giants gave them the points. They just kept coming back, and they kept, they stopped with the stops in the red zone against the Packers that they just couldn't do anything. The receivers were making the catches that Rodgers wanted them to make. I mean, they went away from the running game. Barkley was just enough of a bruiser to. It was like towards the end of the game, another red zone stop by the Giants defense. The Giants weren't doing much of anything. Punter ran in the back of the end zone, just gave him the free 2 points because there wasn't enough time in there anyways. They also avoid the potential block. So that was great thinking by the Giants there. And the Giants stomped their way in London and beat the Packers 27-22, giving me my second loss. You have to Minnesota. The Vikings playing host to the Bears, and the Bears just I don't know. I don't know what's wrong in Chicago. There's something about that offense, something about the offensive line. That's what really needs to be worked on in the draft next year, and part of the offseason is to give Fields a pocket to be able to sit there and actually, find a receiver. Maybe have an offensive line to create those holes for the running backs to go through, or the holes for Justin Fields to go through. I don't know. There's just too many issues to really pinpoint. I think Pace squandered a lot to try and get the assets. I mean, Khalil Mack was I think once in a lifetime acquisition that was good for 1 year, and it kind of backfired on them. So, looking at that, Minnesota was powerful enough. Dalvin Cook almost had 100 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. Kirk Cousins almost 300 yards in the air with a touchdown. Jefferson had over 150 yards receiving. I mean, the big three for Minnesota's offense were humming along. But Chicago kept themselves in that game, shockingly enough. It was 21-10 at the half, 21-19 heading into after 3. So Chicago kept doing just enough to tease you. But when the Minnesota got a late touchdown, they went ahead and do a 2-point conversion, give them a 7-point lead, and that was it. Minnesota held on, beat Chicago 29-22, go 4-1 division, and set up a huge showdown with Green Bay later on in the year. Then we have to Buffalo, where the Steelers, where Kenny Pickett made his NFL debut, or his first official start, should I say. And it just looked like they gave up. Of course, they're playing the Bills, so I don't know much fight they have in terms of that defense. Still without T.J. Watt, it's not the same Steelers defense. The offensive line is porous. The receivers are just as bad. So Pittsburgh's like another version of Chicago almost. And it's kind of bad because you got Tomlin's been there for like forever and he's never had a losing season. And he made this Steelers team, I thought, was going to have enough stamina to make the playoffs. And you probably see him win the division. And look like a complete fool with this predicament because Buffalo just destroyed them 30-3. Led by over 400 yards passing by Josh Allen and 4 touchdowns. It was just a phenomenal thing. Even Gabe Davis, who had over 170 yards and 2 touchdowns, and one of the most amazing ones was a one-handed grab. But yeah, Buffalo just looks outstanding right now. But then we head over to Cleveland, where the Chargers came to town, and I thought Cleveland could make this a little bit of a game, just because how Cleveland is built. They can actually, challenge teams, whatnot. And the Chargers always seem to struggle against teams of similar caliber as they are, but they rose to the top. They were just battling back and forth. I mean, this was a back-to-forth game. Cleveland was up at the half, 21-17. Brissett overall had 230 yards passing with a touchdown. Eckler had 173 yards rushing with a rushing touchdown. He also held on a one-handed touchdown catch as well. Gave him 2 scores for the day. Williams, of course, the favorite target for Justin Herbert, had 134 yards receiving. They were just going blow for blow. The Chargers had the better one more blow that gave them a field goal in the 4th. That was enough to escape Cleveland with a 30-28 victory. Then we head over to New England, where the Detroit Lions, one of the best offenses in the league. Their defense is atrocious, but their offense is spectacular. Their offense failed to show up. They did get on the plane in Detroit. They decided to go down somewhere else. Landed in Toronto. I don't know. Went to Montreal. Maybe to Philly. I don't know. No, they went to Hartford. I don't know where that offense went. Because they scored absolutely nothing against New England. And they should have scored quite a few. This is just one of these things that, Detroit's offenses just goes on pace with any team to play with. It's just their defense keeps coughing up the lead, and the defense just only coughed up 29 points, which is not bad for them, but it was nothing. Goff only had 1 interception, but it was enough. Detroit couldn't stop the rush because Stevenson had over 160 yards rushing. As it was just all New England all day long, and New England shut out Detroit 29-0. Down there in the Big Easy, and this is the one initially I had New Orleans, and I switched it to Seattle because right now New Orleans was just a bad. There were just things that just players are not living up to the hype. James Winston was going back to his old habits. The reason why he wasn't the quarterback in the NFL for a while because of Tampa Bay. Geno Smith is just doing a phenomenal job being a replacement, but all of a sudden the Saints decided to show up this week. It was 19-17.5. Seattle led, but a fourth quarter where they just scored 14 unanswered, or in the third, that just gave them the edge, and they just held on to beat the Seahawks 39-22, giving you my third loss. And Taysom Hill, the quarterback, who was a jack of all trades, the old slash role from the old, if you guys remember, Cordell Stewart, when he was drafted by the Steelers. He was more of a slash type of player, quarterback, running back, receiver. Taysom Hill, over 100 yards rushing, including 3 touchdowns, including a 60-yard scamper. I mean, a WTF. Smith and Lockett hooked up for 104 yards with 2 touchdowns between them, and they could not, get past the Saints. They ended up winning 39-22. Then we head over to New York, where the Jets are playing host to the Dolphins, who did not start Tua. He was sitting out because of the whole concussion issue. That's a whole mess. And the Jets just destroyed them. It was just, they didn't look like broken jets. They looked like fighter jets. They just obliterated Miami and crushed them 40-17. And it was with 5 rushing touchdowns. 5 of them. This is the one I knew the Jets were going to win anyways. I called this in the preseason anyhow, that the Jets are going to win this game. It's just one of those things that Jets always seem to find a way to beat a team they shouldn't be beating, and this is one of them. Jets cruised 40-17. Then we head to Tampa Bay, and this is going to be one of these games I'll probably spend a little longer than I should because I'm going to go on a rant. This was a more closely, evenly matched game between the two than I thought it actually would. Tampa Bay only had 21 points. They had 21 unanswered points. And Atlanta had 15 unanswered points in the fourth and came up short 21-15. Brady had over 350 yards passing, a touchdown. Mariota was doing everything he possibly could. But the one that sealed this game and one that sent Twitter afire was this BS roughing the passer call. I mean, as simple as that. This was a tackle of a quarterback that has been done countless times. Tua had got worse treatment, getting thrown down and not get the call. We'll see later on Monday night. We'll see another incidence of this and another incident where it should have been called but it wasn't. So, but you know, the Falcon came around. I don't remember his name. I do apologize. He goes, hits Tom Brady. He rolled with him because it's just how his momentum was taking him, and his best way to tackle him safely is to roll him. It's kind of like, the alligator death roll. You're just rolling with him. But because it appears that the defender threw the quarterback to the ground, he got charged. Not the fact that Brady tried to kick him when he got up, tried to go after his knee. That wasn't called. Brady got up, looked at the ref, and cried about a flag, throwing his hand motion to get the flag. He drew it. It's only because it's Tom flipping Brady he got that damn call. If you look at any other time, any other quarterback out there that gets tossed like that, they do not get the call. Joe Burrow doesn't get the call. Lamar Jackson doesn't get the call. Tua Tagovailoa doesn't get the call. Only Tom Brady. That game cost the Falcons a chance to win the game because of a bad call. It's one of these things that I think it's just because of Tom Brady, he gets the benefit of the doubt, I think. He chose to play at 45 in the NFL. He's a grown-ass man. That wasn't roughing the passer. There wasn't much else that he could have done except, stand there and start dancing with him in the backfield. I think somebody on Twitter said the best. Just start putting the flags on the quarterbacks. This is what we're coming down to nowadays. It's just, you have to... I understand protecting the quarterback. I understand now the league's going to get a little bit more aggressive with roughing the passer penalties because of the whole Tua situation. They got him blasted nationally for it. That's more of an organizational aspect than anything else because the organization and the team should have saw how Tua reacted after that Buffalo hit and go, no, he's not going back out. And they failed him then. His teammates failed him. The protocols in place were right, and they followed them. But the signs showed that he was concussed, even though he passed the test. And it should have been a coach's decision. No, your ass is sitting on the bench. His teammates should tell him, no, he need to go back that. Even though he had a phenomenal comeback against the Bills that week. I get that, but because of that whole situation there with Tua, then his following week, a short week, and he get rocked again and get knocked out and getting concussion again. The league is going to go over the top when it comes to this, and we're going to see it again later on in this video. And I'll get off my little rant there, but Yeah, Buccaneers held on to win 21-15 thanks to the refs. Then we had the nation's capital where the Commanders playing host to the Titans. And this was a lot closer than, actually I thought it was going to be a close game anyways. And it was Wentz was doing everything he possibly could. I mean, he almost had 306 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. Derrick Henry showed up, had over 100 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns. So it was a good back and forth between these two teams. It is towards the end of the game where Wentz once again threw an interception, sealed the game for the Titans, and they ended up escaping 21-17. Now, hot take on this one. Ron Rivera was given a presser and kind of go, okay, difference between all the other teams in his division. Everyone else's division has a winning record. He does not. He asks, what's the difference between all of you? And he goes quarterback. That's a dig at Wentz. Wentz was touted, saying, hey, we wanted you here. And now he's getting thrown under the bus. Now, with that being said, yes, Wentz does serve some of the issues because he's the ones playing the game. He's the ones making those bad reads or not, seeing the defense correctly and throwing an interception where he shouldn't be throwing. So you get that, but it's also sometimes the plays being called out. So is that, that's going to fall on Ron Rivera because he's the head coach. It also falls on the OC because he's the one designing the plays. So there's a lot of blame to go around on this one, and Wentz and the Commanders just look like a different team. I mean, he has a bad offensive line to begin with, so that also contributes as well. So that's, going up to the GM role, not getting the right players to help protect the quarterback. And we know that Washington does have a tendency not to protect quarterbacks. Just look at Theismann and Alex Smith. But yeah, this is a bad situation for the Commanders. New name, same result. Titans win 21-17. Then we have to Jacksonville, and I thought this is where Jacksonville was just going to go off. Damien Pierce had other ideas. He was just a backyard bully, just carrying Jaguars and making huge runs. I mean, he didn't have 100 yards rushing. He had 99 yards rushing, only 1 touchdown. But when he was making runs, he was carrying Jaguars on his back. And it was just a drumming of the running attack. Defense showed up. Trevor Lawrence, over 200 yards passing, but two picks. They did this bend, don't break philosophy because they only coughed up 6 points overall. It's the type of Lovie Smith defense that I am used to being Bears fan when he used to be in charge of Chicago. They were there. They took the fourth quarter decision away from them to just give it to Pierce, which is probably the best decision they made offensively. And Houston got their first win of the season, beating the Jaguars 13-6. Giving me my 4th loss. To Charlotte, where the 49ers came to town to take on the declawed Panthers. This was just a one-sided affair. It was not even close. Garoppolo had 2 passing touchdowns. Wilson Jr. had a touchdown on the ground over 120 yards, or had 120 yards. Jimmy G was over 250 yards passing. It was just a trouncing all around. Defense got in with the pick sixes. 35-15. It was just a bad day for the Panthers. And after the game, after Carolina's 1-4 start, Rule has now been fired as head coach of the Carolina Panthers. I saw this one coming. I thought he'll last at least to the end of the year. Carolina's like, nope, we're doing this now. He's had a carousel of quarterbacks go through there. It has nothing to do. I mean, in college, he was able to rebuild that Baylor football team that was a bottom dweller for a long time towards the end days of the Southwest and the early days of the Big 12. He brought them back to the national focus of the country. And he joins a long list of successful college football coaches that can't make it in the NFL. Steve Spurrier, Lou Holtz, Saban. These guys that Chip Kelly, they've all been successful in college, can never duplicate that success at the pro level. So I think Rule probably going back to college, find another program to raise from the dead. But yeah, it's going to be a long season for the Panthers. We head to L.A. where the Rams playing host to the Cowboys. Now this one I went back and forth on because right now the Dallas defense is a Super Bowl caliber defense. I'll stand by that. The fact Micah Parsons should be in the MVP conversation. Period. Dot. Because his presence alone swings games. And it's hard to defend against him, and then you still got Diggs in the secondary you got to worry about. But the Rams have that problem as well. They got Sam Darnold on the defensive line, one of the greatest at right now at that position. Then you got Jalen Ramsey in the secondary. So both defenses are built similar. Dallas is a bit younger than LA, so the youth goes to Dallas. So, but LA, with the Rams have the veterans on that defense. So that's what I was going with. I was going with the veteran defensive unit that's already won a championship together. Switch out a few pieces here and there, and lost Von Miller, but bring Bobby Wagner. But it was the Cowboys that did the most damage. Cooper Rush continues to impress as Dak's replacement. So Dak can spend more time resting up. And Stafford still had 300 yards passing, but that bend, don't break philosophy, they couldn't have managed 10 points. That was it. It was a late drive. They were trying to drive to get some points in the fourth quarter because that's when the Rams really locked down the Dallas attack. But Micah Parsons hit Stafford, which forced a fumble, turnover. Cowboys had it. That was it. Iced the game. Cowboys leave L.A. 22-10 victors, moving to 4-1. Cooper Rush is now 4-0 this season. And that's my last loss of this week. So after that, I was kind of quite happy. We head to the desert with the Battle of the Birds. We had the Eagles coming to town, take on the Cardinals. Two young, versatile quarterbacks, Jalen Hurts and Kyler Murray, both Oklahoma products. And it was Jalen Hurts was just getting hurting the Cardinals more on the ground than the air. He actually had 2 rushing touchdowns. Kyler Murray did pretty good himself in the air with 250 yards passing. And the Cardinals just kept themselves in the game. I mean, it was, if they would have scored, I think, every quarter, because they kept Philly to 20. They got, of course, the touchdowns in the first 2 quarters and then field goals to the rest. But, they just couldn't muster anything. Cardinals had a shot to tie the game. Amendola missed it. He missed the game-tying field goal. And the Eagles escaped an upset bid by the Cardinals, 20-17, to remain undefeated. Well, that's just kind of weird that the Eagles are still undefeated, and they've been tested. They got a big test next week against the Cowboys, by the way. Sunday night, Bengals and Ravens. This was a huge matchup between these two. Baltimore is not the same Baltimore team as in the past. The defense is not as scary anymore. They're not out of any Edgar Allan Poe poems. They're more of a plush toy. The Bengals have looked like they've rediscovered themselves. They got a little late start. Now they're starting to gel correctly, and Mixon starting to get more into the action and the running game, which helps Joe Burrow and his passing attack, especially find his favorite target in Jamar Chase. T. Higgins was more sideline, so the kind of, the Bengals are playing with one less a weapon than normal. But this is really a game where the kickers, and here's the two great kickers going at it, Justin Tucker and McPherson. And Tucker hit this huge 58-yard field goal. I mean, I tweeted, even though it all corrected on me, that he is a kicking god. And I'm going, he's a kicking good. But still, I mean, a 58-yarder, he just drilled it. I mean, he had plenty of distance. He could have probably went up to 70 and probably made it. No, I don't think that far. But you could tell he had it because he just kind of went. He was just soaking it in from the audience, from the fans, and rightfully so. Tucker's just one of those phenomenons out there that, this is one of the things you look at like, oh yeah, this is it. This is who we got. I mean, it was just a time frame that I just enjoyed watching this game. This was two good teams going at it, and the Baltimore ended up holding on, beating Cincinnati 19-17. But their rematch will look even more spine-chilling. Then we go to Monday night, and my Lord, once again the refs, which is a huge factor, and the coaches' bonehead moves are another huge factor. Now, Patrick Mahomes almost had 300 yards passing and 4 touchdowns. All of them went to Kelsey, by the way, who only had 25 yards receiving. Figure that math out. Devonte Adams and Derek Carr. I mean, there was a beautiful touchdown pass that Carr beat he beat the cornerback and the safety. He already pointed up. He pointed up. Let Carr know, just chuck it, I'll get it. He chucked it, and he got it. I mean, that was a beautiful pass, regardless. And for a long time, the Raiders were just dominating the Chiefs. They were up 17-0 at one point. 17-0. But there were definitely some calls out there that were just like, what's going on here? Let's go with one. There's another roughing the passer call that was called. And you know about a almost 350 pound defensive lineman come around the side of the block on the blind side of Derek Carr. Now, when he hit Derek Carr, the ball actually went into his hand. So now he's caressing the football. And as they're both falling down, his hand is on the ground, bracing himself so he does not put his full weight on him. But he has the ball. At that point in time, Derek Carr is no longer a quarterback and is not protected by the same rules. However, the refs, it's like he can't put his full body weight on him. Roughing a passer. So 350-pound man, it's a little harder for him not to do that. But when they start calling that, Clay Matthews get called a lot for that because that's how he used to hit quarterbacks, or just lay on top of them. But Clay Matthews is not a 350-pound defensive lineman. Still hurt like hell when you get hit by him. I don't like that one. And the problem is, no other referee had a visual of what happened. They could have corrected the referee who called it. Like, no, it was a fumble. He has the ball. Carr's no longer the quarterback when he went to the ground. He's just, unfortunately, the subject of, unfortunate circumstances. He had to be in the way. But they flagged it for roughing the passer, negated a Chiefs turnover, which only led to a Raiders field goal at that point, so no harm, no foul. But when Chiefs had it, Patrick Mahomes got thrown on the ground. Worse than what Tom Brady did in Tampa Bay. no penalty. Where is the judgment on that one? You're going to flag it when Carr was no longer the quarterback and he was just a collateral damage basically as they both went to the ground, or you're going to call it where Patrick Mahomes, the superstar of the league, gets thrown to the ground. There were penalties not being called by the Raiders. There was an obvious hold on the Chiefs that could have got to Carr. Not called at all. The refs at the Tampa Bay Atlanta game and Kansas City Las Vegas game are terrible. These are two crews apart. Should not be refereeing anymore. And when you start going to bye weeks, definitely not be refereeing during the byes until we get some more training. Then we're going to go into the aspect towards the end of the game. And Kansas City actually get a touchdown. Of course, Kelsey getting a fourth one. And at that point in time, they were up by, Chiefs were up by 7. So they go, okay, we'll go for 2, make a 9-point game, which is a 2-score game, which I see why they went for that one. I really do, because it gives them 9 points. It gives them a 2. The Raiders have to do 2 scores to win the game. So I get that one, and they didn't make it. So they got to 6. So they got to 30 points. I think I'll still kick the extra point because, hey, that means I have to score a touchdown and get a 2-point conversion. That would have been my safe bet. But now we go to the other aspect where the Raiders were driving because Jacobs was just having a phenomenal day rushing, 150 yards rushing with a touchdown. And they were driving, and they got in. They get to the point where, hey, if we get the extra point, we tie the game. This is the other dumb coaching decision. Daniels was like, no, we're going to go for 2. We're going to go for the win. You had 4.5 minutes left in the game. Your offense can move at will. Your defense has been doing quite good. Pretty much corralling the Mahomes threat. Even though their game plan for Kelsey would just leave him open, was not working. But decided to go for 2. And they're like, nope, we're going to give it to Jacobs because he's been running amok. And it looked like a good call. It looked like he got in. However, his knee was well short when it touched. And where the ball was placed was pretty much at the, half-yard line. So it was at the goal. So no good on the try. So now that leaves the Raiders down by 1. Gives the Raiders more pressure because now they have to worry about trying to make the correct call. And then they had possession towards the end of the game. Looked like Devonte Adams had this great catch. I mean, he ended up catching the ball going out of bounds. But what happened was when he dragged his back toe, he didn't have possession. He didn't maintain possession at that time frame. By the time he had possession, only one foot was in, the other foot went out. And so that happened, that one. And then they tried to get to Devonte Adams again, but a teammate actually, I don't know, it's because of the corners and defensive backs, how they were handling the receivers, got the timing off slightly, but the 2 Raiders ended up colliding, taking each other out of the play, and of course, incomplete pass, turnover downs, Kansas City ended up winning. That ending of the game was great. Devonte Adams ended up pushing someone off the field, part of the production team or camera crews or whatnot. Someone that's supposed to be on the sideline, he just pushed him, in a bunch of apologies afterwards, which I'm sure he was. He's probably more frustrated in the whole situation. And this poor guy was having to get in the way. So Devontae's either going to get suspended or fined for that action. So that one's coming. But once again, the refs were clueless in this game too. Plenty of calls that should have been called. defensive holding calls. There was one call that, oh my lord, I've never seen before, but Kansas City is having kicking problems, as we all know. The guy they got, it's just every time I watched him kick, he kept missing. So I had to watch most of the games so that way the Kansas City kicker could actually kick field goals. So it's falling out everywhere else. But he was long enough for a field goal. He missed it, by the way. But the 51 from the defense ended up holding a defensive lineman and kind of pull him out of the way to allow a rusher to go in to try to block the kick, which prevented the lineman to shift over to try to block him. Defensive holding, 5 yards, automatic first down, led to a Kelsey touchdown. So there's some bonehead mistakes by the players and refs and coaches in this game, but Kansas City ended up winning 30-29. Gives me to 11-5 overall, which I'm quite happy with. Next week, football action is going to be a lot of buys to start kicking in, so number of games will definitely increase. And the talk right now has been the roughing the passer. Both refs have stood firm on their decisions and their interpretation of the rule. Now, the one that happened in Kansas City, the ref did not see it was a fumble. And unfortunately, no other referee had a good enough line of sight to kind of go, hey, there was a turnover before they hit the ground. But since there's no replay of roughing the passer, they didn't see it was actually a turnover, thus no roughing the passer. So the one in Kansas City I kind of get with, but then when you don't call it when Mahomes gets thrown to the ground as roughing the passer, there's a problem. The one in Tampa Bay, that was not roughing the passer at all. It's just apparently this ref has a long history of making some really bad calls anyways that affects games. So I don't know. It's something that the league's going to have to look at, but another problem, the league has another issue as well because they have to look at protecting their number one assets. Because Foxworthy said the best, you don't go to NFL games to watch T.J. Watt taking on Myles Garrett. It's the quarterbacks. That's what's drawing people there is the quarterbacks, and then maybe the running back and receivers. It's the offense that draws the players, not the defense, or the fans, not the defense. And that's pretty true in almost every single case. There's a few defenses that will draw more people to them, like the 2000 Ravens, 85 Bears. Those guys will draw the fans because of the defense. But, it's because of a situation that the refs are right now going to go screaming about the protecting the quarterback, so you're going to probably see a lot more errant calls being called. And for the NFL aspects, they rather have the bad roughing the passer calls in place than more Tua storylines plastered on national news, not just on the sports page, but nationally. And that's what the NFL's got to look. And that's what the NFL has to deal with. It's the NFL's not about the PR. That's what they're on about. Now, as a fan of the game, do I really like that? No. The quarterback should be placed in the bubble. It shouldn't be like a no touch rule on the quarterback. That's just dumb. I mean, it's a football game. They're football players. They are going to get rocked. But it's just it you have to look at the Tua situation with a grain of salt, and it's not that you try to protect the quarterback from doing another Tua. It's to prevent another Tua from happening, which is kind of a contradiction in terms. As soon as I utter those words out, but It is the teams themselves that have to look at what Tua did as soon as he got off the ground in that Buffalo game. That right there, as written in the protocols prior, now they've kind of revamped them. Those were signs of concussions, regardless of him passing those tests. The fact that he stood up, before he stood up, shook his head, stood up, shook his head again, and went to his knees. That is signs he has a concussion. The team should have set him for the rest of the game against Buffalo and put him on protocol, regardless if he passed everything or not, because of his actions as soon as he got hit. That's all had to be done. And then we won't be having this whole discussion about, these roughing the passer calls, I think. But, that's just the issues this past week. Some of the refs kind of not making calls they shouldn't be making. It's just one of those weird things. So going 11-5 this past week, very happy with that one. But hey, let me know down below your take. I know I rattled off a lot about, and it kind of went off a deep end, a few issues. And I think it's just something that's going to be circulating the news feed for NFL for a couple days until we start Thursday Night Football, which is going to be a barn burner between Chicago and Washington. And I'm a Bears fan, and I can say that. That's going to be a bad game. But anywho, once again, just let me know down below which game that surprised you the most. Which one, how's your team doing in terms of where they're at right now in the season? When you think about these roughing the passer calls, while you're there, make sure you hit the thumbs up once again. You can share this video with friends and family. Let you know. Really helps out this channel. You also, once you subscribe, make sure you hit that bell notification. Let you know anytime I post any more content on my channel. And I will see you next time on Chat Sports Talk.